Kia ora team, welcome back to another edition of Big Hairy News. Tonight is a best of, as some of you will know. I'm on bereavement leave, not entirely sure when I'll be back. It'll be probably before Wednesday the 21st of June, recording this on Tuesday the 13th of June. This may be the same recording as you see starting another show, but the clips will be different. So if you've caught the start of the show and this feels like the start of an earlier show, trust me, the clips that follow will be different. I just don't have a lot of time today, as I'm only recording one introduction. Thank you for all the kind words that I've received through Twitter and Facebook and other things about our family situation. I'm not sure exactly when we'll be back operating as per usual. Keep an eye out on us. Make sure you follow me on Twitter at Pat Brittenden on Twitter. That's where you get the up-to-dates as to what's going on, when we are going to be live, when we're not, when we're going to be back in Dunedin, I guess broadcasting as per usual. I would expect that to be some part in the first half of the week of the 19th, 20th, 21st of June, but I don't know as I'm recording this right now. So follow me on Twitter. That's where you get the latest updates, and the clips that follow are all different from a previous best of, if you've seen it, trust me. And before we get going, at the time of recording this show, I want to say thanks to all our patrons, you lovely people who are supporting us and what we're doing. This may have changed. There may have been a flood of people joining on Patreon by the time that I've recorded this through to the time you're seeing this. But as of recording, these are our lovely patrons, and they give us support in what we do. They help us do what we do, and we thank you so much for it. Enjoy the clips that follow. We will be back to regular broadcasting as soon as we possibly can. Thank you so much for your support. We love what we're doing, me and Chewy. I look forward to getting back to this as we normally do. And until we see you next time, be safe, be well, and here is some best ofs for you. Christopher Luxon, and I think he's trying to court the Destiny Church audience and make sure that they don't get through, has started this whole thing about parents and this and parents and that and parents and the other and stuff. It sounded to me a bit like he wanted to come for, students' feminine hygiene products. Like he's criticizing free things. He's basically saying, parents don't have to take as much responsibility as they once did. I mean, they get things like free tampons at schools. And I'm just like, really?
Monstrous.
Are you coming for the tampons now, Mr. Luxon? Have a listen to this 10-second clip, right?
I think it's really difficult, but all I think is, as parents, you just have to make the call and say, like truancy, for example, today, we now have free lunches, free breakfasts, free period products, support with uniforms. And in many cases, it's about, waking up and getting the kids to school and having that expectation on them.
So free period products, I mean, so I guess if that's a criticism, I guess National's coming for your tampons, ladies. I think it's sometimes called the clipboard theory, that a person in a white coat with a clipboard can talk intelligent, willing people into doing horrific things. And I think I might have been watching the documentary today, and I saw January 6th, and I just thought, what did those people think 5 years before that? Will they ever thought they would have got here? What will they think 5 years from now? This is part of the original experiment that if you're watching us on video, this is from the 60s. And this man here is the one who's being tested. And the testing is when the person in the other room gets a question wrong, he gives him an electric shock in incrementally higher numbers. Now, the person in the other room is just an actor, so it's not happening. But this person doesn't know that. And they continue to give the other person electric shocks and almost until a deadly moment. I'll play you a little bit of this so you can see it if you haven't seen it before.
Cloud, horse, rock, house. Answer. Wrong. 150 volts. Answer, horse.
Experiment, that's all. Get me out of here. Get me out of here, please.
Continue, please. Go right on.
I refuse to go on. Let me out.
So he doesn't want to do it, yeah?
The experiment requires you continue, teacher. Please continue.
Participants didn't know that the learner was really an actor and the so-called shocks harmless.
So that's what that was. And I thought there's a modern day context if people want to check it out. It's on Netflix. It's really interesting. It's called The Push. Have you guys seen The Push? Sanjana, have you seen The Push?
I've not seen The Push, no.
Okay, so The Push, and I'm going to turn the volume down because we'll get kicked off YouTube for doing it. The Push is Darren Brown, right? So Darren Brown sets up a about social compliance, right? That guy in the red hair that you can see, that guy right there, he wants to see if he can force a person to commit murder. And what they do is they use a series of incremental instructions, getting bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger, to see if they can set up to get that man, the subject who doesn't know everyone else is in on it, to push someone off the roof of a building. And the very first thing they start with is they have sausage rolls, yeah? And they don't order vegan sausage rolls. So the first instruction that guy complies with is just put some flags in the non-vegan ones and we'll just tell them they're vegan. And he complies. And he continues to comply until he gets to a decision at the end of the program of will he push this person off the roof or not and kill them, commit murder. And it's, I don't really want to tell people what happens. Okay, I won't tell you what happens with him, right? So that guy with the red hair, if you're going to watch it on Netflix, I won't tell you what happens with him, but I can tell you they show a bunch of highlights at the end. Believe it or not, most people push the guy off the roof. Most people murder someone based on an hour and a half of social conditioning. Now, you think about that and add that to the anti-vaxxer brigade, right? Everyone's jotting down now, the push, watch the push, got to watch the push. You think about that from the anti-vaxxer, the vegan sausage roll might be something really simple like, oh, mandates, don't like mandates. That might be the vegan sausage roll. The end of it is setting up a gallows on Capitol Hill looking for, that might be the push off the building, is looking for Mike Pence because you want to hang him. And these things happen, and the social contagion or the social conditioning is something very real. Before I make it sound too depressing, I also want to say he's done another show, which is called The Sacrifice, where he kind of does the opposite, and he wants to experiment. Will a stranger take a bullet for another stranger? So he does the opposite. It's sort of the opposite. Will someone give up their life for a stranger? And it's not just a stranger. This guy here that you're seeing on screen, if you're watching, he's a bit of a Trumpian right-wing, anti-immigrant guy. And would he take a bullet for an illegal Mexican immigrant? And again, it's a step by step by step by step by step. When you get to the end of the social conditioning, what will you do? And like I said, go and watch the push. It's on Netflix. Go and watch. I think this is called Sacrifice. And have a look what it can do. And then think about your uncles and your aunts and the people who are posting on Facebook and where it's starting and where it could go. It's a fascinating experiment. It's a terrifying experiment. Like I said, I won't tell you what that guy and the main guy was for that push. One person doesn't know the experiment's going on. The other 100 people do, and they're acting to it. I'm not going to tell you what happened with him, but I will say clearly the majority of people who they tested ended up murdering someone, and only took them an hour or so to be convinced to do it by what's going on around them. You're welcome to jump in now. That's I just wanted to kind of share that.
Well, now you sorted my Netflix viewing for the so that, and then the algorithm is useless. I mean, thank you for recommending it. When you were talking, at least in the first incarnation of what that chap was trying to do, my mind went to the 63 book by Hannah Arendt, Eichmann in Jerusalem, The Banality of Evil, how ordinary people can do the most heinous of things. And she's talking about the Third Reich, of course. It really is the case. And Pat, I don't know whether you remember this, but when Paula asks that person later on towards the end of the doco and long after the protest, whether she thought she was being violent, she said, no, I wasn't being violent. That to me was the clincher, not actually what you pointed out, which was the clip from the protest site itself with her menacingly approaching the cameraman. And in the spirit and the heat of the moment, you could have argued that upon greater reflection and with the passage of time, she would have thought a bit about it and had a different answer. But the fact that she didn't think that she was being violent for me was the clincher.
Right.
That was the highlight of that segment. And that, in a sense, speaks to, in a sense, Pat, what you just articulated, which is social conditioning. And, there's a whole swathe of what we do and how we do it and what we study and where we study it and who produces and the form and shape it takes. That is around that. That is around how you get people to believe and think and then do things. And that is also, I know time is of essence here, but one of the things that another point that I diverged from is with Rebecca Kitteridge and her assessment of the threat. And George, I see you nodding, which is, of course, from a very NatSec perspective, right? So I'm not critiquing that. I'm just saying it for what it is. And the assertion, and by the way, I mean, it was both an assurance to Kiwis that they have 40 to 50 people in their gaze or radar, and that even though the temperature's gone up, she was, very assuring to Kiwis that, what she says is not commensurate with an increased risk society. Now, I don't want to get into that, but it was interesting for me that it ended there. And that it goes back to what I said earlier, because so much of this is from an NatSec perspective. What we bring to the table is, Pat, to suggest that what starts online never stays online.
Yeah.
What starts online always, through the shaping of your attitudes, perceptions, beliefs, reactions, and responses, invariably and indubitably ends up in offline consequences. That then is what disinformation is at its core. It is not something ever designed to stay online. It is always with a strategic end state of offline consequences that, in a country like Aotearoa, are going to impact your democratic fabric. Therein lies the rub.
How's the leadership situation going in the Greens at the moment? It seems like it was pretty big news 2 or 3 weeks ago, but that's still not sorted out yet. We're still finding out who's going to be Marama's co-leader. Is that the case at the moment?
Well, the only candidate is James Shaw.
But correct me if I'm wrong, because we were trying to figure this out on the show. You can have that, has to be 75% approval for someone to continue on. But now if there's 51% approval, is that enough for James? Or does it have to be 75% again?
He does
or it
have to get
reopens the
75%.
nominations?
Yeah. He does have to get 75%. And I guess one of the key things that probably wasn't communicated very well, even to members of the party, was that there was many fewer votes than there could have been. So normally at a conference, you had 100. We had 150 delegate places. And last year, when it was a contested co-leadership as thing, there was 140 delegate votes cast.
Wow.
And at this one, and I think this is because of COVID being in the community and people, kind of not wanting to attend an AGM in person. In the end, it was online, but it didn't get moved online until 4 days before the AGM. And so they were struggling to get people to be delegates from around the country, and there were only 107 delegates attended and voted. So that was quite a big drop, 107 out of 150. So it was more votes not cast than votes reopen nominations against James. And
Right.
Presumably most of those delegate votes, if they probably would not have been reopen nominations, because my guess, I can't say for sure, but my guess is that people who are happy with the leadership weren't motivated to show up and vote in this election because they didn't think they had to,
Right.
So it's not, he still has to run a campaign and convince members to vote for him and to get 75%. But there were also changes to the delegate rules that were made at this AGM. So it's actually a different distribution of delegates now, because previously, the way our delegate rules worked, some parts of the country that had lots of members and lots of electorates had lots of delegates, and other parts of the country that had lots of members but not so many electorates, like they were concentrated, lots of members concentrated in a few electorates, only had a few delegates. So arguably, it's going to be different. It's going to be a different set of delegates, and there'll be different people who turn out to the meetings, and maybe James will convince some of the people who voted reopen nominations, or maybe a lot more members will just show up and say, we want James to continue. I mean, if they could vote, if they voted reopen nominations again, I think that would definitely be a sign that, that James should stand down. But I don't expect that to be the outcome. And I think the people who did vote reopen nominations wanted a contest and wanted someone to stand against him. But
so your expectation is James will be the leader, the co-leader. That's yes. Your expectation? Because I'm from the outside looking in, the idea that, like, I understand we had a debate on this here with George, and I was like, how can 30% of the people stop this happening? And George was like, well, no, 30% of the people voting has enabled something to happen, which is the nomination to be opened. So I'm like, I can see how that works. But now that there is only one nominee, if those 30% come at the same vote, it does feel like they'll be stopping something, which feels a bit peculiar. But then maybe I don't have the green mindset of, making sure everyone's on board or whatever it is that could possibly happen. And I just feel like it would be a bigger waste of your time and resources for the Greens in particular to then spend X amount of weeks and months looking for another co-leader. And then that might happen again next year. I'm just like, oh, anyway, just
and I don't know that people thought their reopen nominations were going to be successful. There might be some people who assumed it was just sending a signal and not that it would actually get over 25%. And again, it was 30%, but it was 30% of way fewer votes than what would normally be. So, and I think that if it had been 140 votes or 150 votes, and it's still been 30% reopen nominations, and we had really felt like, whoa, there's significant, I think, maybe James would have thought twice before putting his name forward again. I don't know. I probably shouldn't speculate on this.
Yeah.
But there was enough of a question about whether or not this was really representative of how the members felt, or whether it was just that group was the people who were dissatisfied and concerned were overrepresented in the sample of delegates and the members showing up at branch meetings. And so now we'll see.
Well, we've been to Afghanistan twice, and, we get security training as journalists, hostile environment training when we go to places like that. So Afghanistan twice, the Philippines 4 times, which is one of the world's most dangerous countries to be a journalist. One of our most terrible decision-making processes was in Mexico, when we thought that we would be fine to do a particular job and we were really wrong. But I refer to that hostile environment training because when we have that hostile environment training, it's because we need to be prepared and reminded about situational awareness and things like always having an exit route when you're in a particular situation and having a plan. We used that to a degree in places like Afghanistan, but we used it full on in Wellington. And that makes me really sad, not just as a journalist, but as a citizen, that our hostile environment training is most useful in our own country. What the hell? What's gone wrong?
Yeah, I think I spotted a little bit of that just when you were literally getting hounded out, but I just noticed the body language.
Yeah, how you were walking.
You were, shoulders rolled, small. I said that straight there is someone that knows it's going very south, and it's just I can't antagonize this person. I've got to get out.
I didn't realize it was that obvious, but you're absolutely right. That's exactly how we felt. And Louisa Cleve, our Stuff Circuit producer, and I were talking about it the other day. And, I was kind of too scared to look back at this, what was going on behind us, but I also really wanted to know what was going on behind us. But when she looks at that footage, she sees herself looking behind us because she needed to know, because it was incredibly threatening. And that wasn't even the worst time. That was just a time that was captured on camera. Some of the worst moments weren't captured on camera. And I'm not looking for sympathy as a journalist, because, you know, one of my colleagues reminded me that no one really actually cares about, you know, no one cares about journalists particularly. But my point in raising this, and I'm grateful to discuss this, and our point in putting it in the documentary is that it's not about us as kind of individuals, you know, or as journalists even, but it's about our collective role in our democracy. And I'm always hesitant to talk about that because it sounds sort of so self-important. But I do really believe that it's under threat. One of the pillars of our democracy is under threat when people won't let us report.
Yeah.
It's a protest. We're journalists. I've reported on, I don't know how many protests in 30 years as a journalist. I've never been treated like that in this country or anywhere else. So what's gone wrong? I mean, we know what's gone wrong, but what do we do about it?
And I've said to people before, if I said, Chewy, if I was in New York and I said to someone, you know, what does the word choice mean? People would go, oh, well, it means when you've got, you know, things to select from. And I'd go, no, it means good. They'd be like, what the fuck are you talking about? Like, well, in New Zealand, the word choice means kapai, means good, you know, because the way it gets used in society is different from if you looked up the dictionary what the word choice would mean, because it wouldn't mean it means very good. It would mean a selection between, you know, more than two items. So he's talking about the way that society is using these words. So let's have a look at something else, right? Because I wanted to talk about this, the term woman. And remember, this is coming from a heterosexual male who doesn't have any kind of gender identity issues. So this is just a perspective from me. And there'll be already people out there that say, we'll be saying you shouldn't have this conversation. You're the wrong person. Nah, fuck it. I'm allowed any opinion I want. And I've thought long and hard about some of these things, and you don't have to agree. John Stewart has just set up this part talking about, in my opinion, talking about language, how the language of gender is sort of different from the biology of sex. Yeah. And when people at the moment are asking for questions about definitions around gender words, they're trying to tie it to the biology, whereas society is going down a path at the moment where they're trying to tie it to societal issues, right? And I'll give you a really good example. This is just all me talking now. This is not research or anything from anybody else. These are just my thoughts. So you take them with a grain of salt. I could be completely wrong in your opinion, and that's fine. The word gay, right, for a very long time meant happy, meant colorful, meant all these different sorts of words. There was a particular day. Now there is references in history that talk about the 20s and 30s, the word gay coming to terms or coming towards the community of people who loved each other of the same sex. But really in the mid 50s is when it became adopted as homosexual man in particular, right? But there was a day, right, whatever the date was, let's call it June the 14th, which is a fantastic day, by the way, that the whole world used the word gay, meaning happy. Then the next day, a person, 2 people, 10 people use the word gay for a different reason. But still, 99.99999% of people use the word gay to mean happy, enlightened, you know, frivolous. Then a journey happens. And I would still say that journey is still happening today, because there are probably 95-year-olds out there who would still use the word gay to mean happy. I would guess. But we are basically coming to the end of that journey where if it hasn't happened already, it will happen that the word gay will only mean people who are in a non-heterosexual relationship, right? It won't mean happy anymore. That might be a 60-year journey, right? Before the journey started, it only meant happy. At the end of it, it'll only mean people who are not in a non-heterosexual relationship, most commonly used for men who love men, most commonly. But it can be a myriad within that community. That journey, that 50 or 60-year journey about the word gay, we are in that journey right now with gender terms, right? Yes. There was a period not long ago when the word woman meant adult human female. We are now in a transitional stage where society is deciding what the word woman means, or any other gender term, we will get to the end of that journey at some stage, and then society will have decided. That's another reason that this what is a woman thing is so disingenuous, because it doesn't acknowledge the journey that society is taking these words on. And that's what we're doing. We're taking these words on a journey, and we as a society will decide. The word gay, the day before it became used as same-sex attracted couples or people to start off with, the dictionary definition would not have said same-sex attraction couples. Now it does, right? What that means is at the end of this journey, or as we go through this journey, the word woman in the dictionary may change. The definition of the word woman in the dictionary will probably change. And then all of those people going adult human female won't have a leg to stand on, because we are currently in a journey of this language. Another example is Mount Egmont. For people who don't know what that is, Mount Taranaki. For a long time, Mount Egmont was only Mount Egmont. I can remember when they started to change it to Mount Taranaki. Now pretty much everyone calls it Mount Taranaki. There might be a few stragglers. There'll be a time shortly when it only gets called Mount Taranaki. So the way to think about the what is a woman or woman conversation or language is purely language we're talking about, is we are in that transitional journey right now. Those questions are disingenuous because what they're asking for is an absolute. And at the moment in society, we are not in an absolute point. We may get to an absolute point at some stage in the future, like we did kind of with the word gay. But at the moment, it's in transition. So when someone says to you, what is a woman? The answer to that is, well, are you talking about what it says in the dictionary? Are you talking about how we use it in society? Are you linking it to sex, which is kind of not what it is, because woman is gender, sex is female? So you explain to me what you're looking for, and then I'll answer your question. And then if someone says, well, what does the word woman in the dictionary mean? You'd go, well, at the moment, it says adult human female. If you were to say, how does society use it? We're like, well, actually, a lot of society, many in society, use it to say, if you identify as, then you are. So there's not an answer, because it depends how people are using it and what answers they're looking for.
You can see that really clearly in all of these videos on YouTube, where it is posed as a, hey guys, real quick, easy question. What is a woman? They don't want the depth of thought. They want you're real quick, you're on camera, you're being interviewed in the street, real quick, what is it? Oh, cool. There's our answer. Definitive. It's what we're looking for, because that's where people's minds are at the moment. I love the fact that language, it doesn't matter what language, but let's talk about English, just does not stay the same. That's why there's English, American English, New Zealand English. You can't nail that shit down as much as you would love to. You cannot pin language in place. It's why we're not speaking bloody Saxon or Old English. Things change.
And look, I think a really clear one, not to hark back on something I've already said, but a really easy one for us Kiwis to find out is, what does choice mean? Well, no, that's not what it says in the dictionary, no, but it's how we use it in society. I think that's actually a really clinical definition of gender terms. What does it mean in the dictionary might not be what it means. And I mean, my kids are using slay these days. Have you heard this? Slay. Everything's slay. Everything's slay.
Yeah, slay queen.
So what does the word slay mean? Well, not what it means in the dictionary. That's not how it's getting used. So there's how a word's getting used, and there's what it means in the dictionary, and there's historically what it means. So what they're basically saying, these people are asking these questions, is historically, what did it mean? That's actually what they're asking. They're not actually asking, how is it used today?
I mean, Chewy, while I'm doing this, you look up that photo of the Tauranga candidates. We all know the photo, but let's bring it up after this, because this actually references literally the conversation is around, too many white people in national. So let's have a look. Here we go.
But do you have confidence in the party's selection processes that your party knows what to look for in a candidate? And I'm talking about beyond experience and qualification, and maybe even colour, when you look at the lack of diversity in the National Party. Do you have confidence that voters can voters trust that National knows how to pick a good politician with good credibility and morals?
Absolutely. I mean, I worked really hard over summer when I became...
Even regarding the reputation that it has?
Yeah, well, look, I'd say I get those issues. They are in the past. As I said, they were before I even came to Parliament, and certainly not since I've become the leader. I worked really hard over summer.
Certainly since Sylvia Wood, the new party leader, and since obviously since there's been Sam Uffindale.
Sure, let me just
Has there
finish.
changed?
Yeah, so what I'd say to you is we have worked really hard on our processes and we have retooled them. I'm really confident we're going to get a great slate of candidates for 2023. We've had a lot of enthusiasm of people wanting to explore candidacy. And what's been critical is making sure we've got a process where we get to know the candidate really well, but they also get to understand the reality of the job. Often people think the idea of the job sounds great, but the reality can be very different. And so that process that we're running, where there's constant assessment on both sides of that equation, is really good. And so I'm very confident we're going to get a good, diverse set of candidates. You and I have spoken about it a lot before. We didn't get the diversity we wanted given our poor election result. But I can tell you, the National Party, when it's at its best, is a national party. And it takes its values and its centre-right politics, principles and beliefs, and it takes it into all communities and has representatives from all communities. And so I'm confident we're going to do that.
Oh, Chewy, why can't we talk to them? This utter bullshit coming out. Okay, so people, let me translate for you.
I think he's been very clear.
Oh my God, let me translate. Please, can I translate? Please, can I translate? I want to repeat to you. See my little notes here? I want to repeat to you what he said. Quote, we didn't get the diversity we wanted given our poor election result. So what that means is the brown folk down the bottom of the list, they didn't get in because only all the white fellas up the top of the list got in. He's literally saying it. He's literally saying it. We didn't get the diversity we wanted given our poor election result. In other words, not enough people got in. So the diversity, those on the lower end of the scale, didn't make it. He's literally saying it. He's saying the soft thing out loud, and the fucking journalists aren't asking it. I'm dumbfounded. Here's the other. You can respond to that first, Chewy, before I go on to my next piece.
Yeah, like we ranked all of our ethnics towards the lower end of our list is not a great argument. Traditionally, National Party has had quite a lot of support in some ethnic groups, Indians and mainland Chinese, very, very strong with National. But you don't see them. They're not candidates. They're not put forward. Those are the four people that they got for Tauranga. And the joke was that they're all the same dude. When you look at National Party leadership, Todd Muller and Christopher Luxon are interchangeable. Where is the point of difference?
Well,
I'm tired of business white dude. Like even Simon was better than this.
So please let me now go on to the second point from those 30 seconds he said at the end, right? Quote, the National Party, when it's at its best, is a national party. In other words, when we're the best party we can be, we are nationally representative. We represent the country. And I would say that would mean by saying that you're saying the ethnic makeup, the gender makeup, the probably in this day and age, the sexuality makeup as well. Maybe not being, that's a new thing coming in now for some people, but certainly that. Okay. So what I want to know, Mr. Luxon, is when the fuck was that? The National Party, when it's at its best, is a national party. Do you know what that is? It's the same as Donald Trump saying, let's make America great again. The obvious question was, when was that, Mr. Trump? Name that time, and no one's done it. So guess what? I've done the fucking work because this is what I do, because I have no life. So think about that, right? The National Party, when it's at its best, is a national party. Here's the shadow cabinet of John Key. Let's see how well represented this is of the community, because I count up 17 males and 3 females. There is a very strong weight towards white men, a very little makeup to do with ethnic minorities. I think Pansy Wong's in this first. I really just looked at the first 20. Like Pansy Wong's in there from memory. You know, there are women in there for sure. And of course, I haven't done the heavy research just to look how many Māori there are in there, but it's certainly not 14%, which would be the population representation. Let's have a look again, shall we? This is the shadow cabinet of Jim Bolger. Well, Jim Bolger's one was a bit harder to do because it doesn't have a 1 to 20 and some of the names are mentioned twice, but there's one female name and that's it out of 30, Ruth Richardson. So when are we talking about this national party when it's at its best being a national party? Shall we go and have a look at the Jenny Shipley, right? This is the national party. Jenny Shipley in her top 20, 18 male, 2 female, including her. So one other. So her representation was one other female in there. Again, I haven't done the breakdown of all ethnicities, but I think Jerry Brownlee can be whakapapid back to iwi, but can't see many Pacific Island names in there. Can't see many Asian names in there. Doesn't seem to be very well represented. And just for the topper to go back to the last Prime Minister of this era, how about Mr. Robert Muldoon? 20 male, 0 female. Once again, looking for other representation. You know, Neil, Michael, Don, Rex, Jack. How many Pacific Island names in there are they? So I just want to say it again. Mr. Luxon, please, I beg of you, just you're never going to talk to us. So just somebody, some journalist out there, ask him this question when he says this. The National Party, when it's at its best, is a national party. When the fuck was that? Just tell, that's all I want to know. When was it a nationally represented party? Just when? Just give me a date and I'll leave it alone. I put this conversation up last night, sort of a little bit lighthearted, right? Because Karen Plunket put up a tweet yesterday, you know, something tongue-in-cheek, being a bit silly. I don't know if I should celebrate being unblocked by David Farrier. And the reason we put it up to be a bit tongue-in-cheek is I responded to him by saying probably the same celebration I had when you unblocked me, meh. And that was sort of all I put up there because Plunket had been talking about David Farrier on Twitter. And I was like, oh, okay, that's interesting. So today, wake up this morning and David Farrier has responded. There's a webworm that's come out. But let's first of all have a look what was actually said. So Sean Plunket put a tweet out yesterday that said this. Hey, David Farrier. Oh, sorry. I suppose that's supposed to be has because, you know. So let's say, has David Farrier been to any good court-ordered non-violence courses lately?
Where the hell has that come from?
Yeah, well, I know where that's come from. I can tell you, right?
What?
Hayden Donnell, who I believe is Media Watch on RNZ. I believe that's Hayden Donnell. I could be wrong, but I think Hayden Donnell and Colin Peacock do it. Responded to Sean Plunket saying, if he hasn't, then this would be a very risky tweet. Because, of course, if it's not true, that would be defamatory. Because even though it's got a question mark on it, and as Mr. Plunket and some people try to do, they think if I'm just asking a question, then I'm covered by, you know, I'm not stating anything, I'm asking a question. It's a pretty stupid way to think of the law, in my opinion. And you can see there's a fair bit of traction there. I mean, it's not hundreds of thousands, but, you know, there's a fair bit of traction there. Hayden Donnell then went on to talk about this new film released by David Farrier, which I haven't seen yet. I don't think any of us probably have. And Hayden Donnell said, I just looked up David Farrier's new film, Mr. Organ. And it's about an obsessive man with a history of taking people in with what proves to be false information. So this is talking to Sean Plunket. Hope you haven't been fooled by anyone like that. So let's have a look, and this will get us demonetized, but you know, we can get around that by you going to Patreon. Let's have a look at some of the trailer of this new film called Mr. Organ. In fact, before we do that, let me just read you a bit of a synopsis. This is from NZ On Screen. In 2013, a colleague of journalist David Farrier entered the office in tears with a nasty run-in with a car towing company working for Ponsonby store, Bashford Antiques. In 2016, a TV3 expose about the shop's aggressive action spurred Farrier to dig deeper. All roads led to Michael Organ, a man with criminal convictions, a penchant for fake identities, and a line in psychological torment. In this trailer, Farrier sinks deeper into Organ's disturbing backstory and plays cat and mouse with the man himself. Mr. Organ is Farrier's second feature documentary following 2016's acclaimed Tickled and Netflix's series Dark Tourist. So that's the lead into this story. Let's have a bit of a look at the trailer, shall we?
There's a gap in my blinds, and I keep thinking, when I open my eyes, I'll see him staring back at me through the gap.
Oh, hi, it's David Farrier speaking. I'm a journalist based in Auckland. How are you doing?
Well, I'm perfect. Thank you. Bye.
A full-scale war was breaking out on the streets of an Auckland suburb.
A wheel clamper who was then demanding they pay to get their vehicles back. You are a crook.
I'm literally trying to give you $400 cash.
Uncontrolled, exorbitant, intimidating behaviour.
You're an absolute crook. You are a liar.
I know there must be more to this car park terrorist, and I want to find out what.
People won't talk because they're frightened. He's a very dangerous man.
That's his trademark. Soften them up, poison them off, then shoot them down in flames.
That's not a good thing to be probing into with our family. It's caused a lot of pain.
This man was dangerous.
How did you know that he'd been to my house?
Just talked all about you and said that he's onto you.
They give me a key to your home.
Wow. That seems quite weird. I mean, I'd prefer you didn't have a key to my house.
Holy shit.
This is fucking crazy. He knows I'm making a film about him, and I think he wants to be a part of it.
He followed me down to my bedroom and he punched me in the head 6 times.
Michael Organ is a black hole.
I'm going to get taken along for the ride.
And I'll fall in.
Well, he is a genius.
I'm literally trapped with him.
The problem with Michael is once he gets on to you, he won't let go.
You probably would have been quite an interesting person to know if you weren't such a cunt.
Look at that face, Chewy. Now, look, I'll just...
That looks amazing. Are you kidding?
I've been in touch with David as well. We've had a few, not about this yet, but we've had some conversations in the past about getting him on my other podcast. We'll see if we can get him on to have a bit of a chat about it. But okay, so that's the first time you've seen Mr. Organ, the preview
I've seen this tweet about
it.
I hadn't watched the trailer. I actually remember the original, I think it was Nightline expose onto Bashwood Antiques and their rabid clamping. And basically, if you parked outside down an alleyway next to their shop for more than 5 minutes, you'd find a boot on your car, and you'd have to pay like $500-600 to have it unlocked. So to have this spiral out now, like 15 years later, into that trailer, literally gave me goosebumps. That looks amazing.
How much did you like that?
Oh no, it was good.
Perfect, eh?
It was good. But yeah, Farrier is a legend. Like if you have to like pick your fighter, Plunket or Farrier, no contest. No contest. Well, Dark Tourist was amazing as well. So
yeah, still on Netflix if you want to see it. Yeah, it is very good. Now, so let's get back to this conversation. So this is what's swirling around at the moment, and I can't remember whether I read it, whether I've got it highlighted. I'll have a look. But obviously, the intimation is that Mr. Organ has got to Sean Plunket and fed him some information that Plunket is now putting out there, like every good journalist does, like it's gospel. Every good journalist does, like it's gospel. Yeah. Plunket didn't go so well on the old Twitterverse when he started doing this, and I'll just give you one. I'll give you one example. He put up this tweet about David Farrier court-ordered non-violence courses lately. Someone Warwick 512 responded. Avi Yemeni, who was on his show a couple of mornings ago, was convicted of insulting his ex-wife and is a welcome guest on your show. What's your standard here, Sean? So I was like, yeah, well, yeah. It's pretty obvious. So anyway, we're talking about this morning. Wake up this morning, and I'm greeted by this tweet. As Mr. Organ approaches, this is from David Farrier, in case you're listening to the audio podcast. As Mr. Organ approaches its November 10th New Zealand release date, an old man, backed by millions of dollars from rich lister Wayne Wright, has decided to defame me. Feel free to retweet this. I'd prefer the truth was circulated. And we get into the webworm story. So the webworm by David Farrier, which is webworm.co, if you want to go check it out for yourself and sign up, reads Sean Plunket defames me. Talks a little bit about Sean Plunket and goes into a few a few conversations, and I'll read a couple of bits out from it. It's Michael Organ, isn't it? I'm even short of the guy's name. Anyway, Mr. Organ. Mr. Organ? Michael Organ? I think it's Michael. Anyway, Organ appears to have gotten into the ear of New Zealand broadcaster Sean Plunket. If you are not familiar with the New Zealand media landscape, it's small and it can be feral. Sean occupies a strange, angry place there. And then he's got a link to what he's written about before. Platforming conspiracy theorists and anti-trans rhetoric. His website / online radio station is backed by millions of dollars, care of Rich Lister, Wayne Wright. And that's a link to the spin-off article. Last night, the man with millions behind him sent out this incorrect tweet about me, which is that one about had been on any court-ordered non-violence. You can read the whole article yourself, but I'm just giving you a couple of snippets of it. To be clear, says David Farrier, this is a defamatory statement. Him framing it as a question, the I'm just asking questions technique, is his attempt not to be defamatory, but it is. I have not been ordered by any court to go to any violence courses lately or ever, mainly because I've never carried out any violence. Mr. Plunket's insinuation is that I am violent, that I have carried out violence, but his followers listen, and now a bunch of people in New Zealand believe him. And then there's a screenshot, for again, if you're listening on the audio podcast, that says down the bottom about, you can read those for yourself. Do you want to read those out? I'm just going to do one other thing. You want to read those out, Chewy, while I'm doing this?
Yep, hang on. I just need to make the screen bigger. No, big screen, mate.
Or someone just says, oh, yes, please. Someone goes, ugh, not a wokester. And then, wait, what? A nasty guy, that Farrier. More information on this would be good. So that's what's being said by some people in the tweets. At
one point, I'd say here, this is exactly how that pernicious rumor about Clark Gayford started as well, in a very similar thing. Just these sort of veiled hints that maybe he's up for drugs charges, and people just went hook, line, and sinker on that shit. People will believe this.
Yep, for sure. Farrier goes on, I know for a fact that this, quote, court-ordered violence course, end quote, is the latest piece of disinformation being propagated by one Mr. Organ, the subject of my documentary. It will make sense when you see the film. And Organ appears to have found an ally in the multi-million-dollar backed Sean Plunket. And there's the tweet from Hayden Donnell. And then Sean Plunket also talks about the trailer being removed from YouTube. Well, it's not, because we've just played it. So that's something else that's very strange about the whole thing.
You could literally go, well, I'm going to say something. Better check that it's true by going to a different tab and typing it in. But maybe his assistant had gone home for the evening.
So David talks about a few more bits and pieces, brings up, some of the replies that have been coming in, says replies will come in, Trump avatars on display, and the homophobia begins. Says the homosexual tickle boy, Faggium has blocked me, says someone from Mega. And not that this wraps up the whole piece, you can read it for yourself, but one last piece says, as Sean and others like him go around proclaiming, quote, I'm just asking questions, end quote, I often wonder what they think of their fans. And this is something we've talked about before, Chewy. When they look to see that their fans are saying, what their fans are saying, is there a part of them that goes, oh, people who seem to love my work also love saying a lot. I wonder if that's a reflection of me in any way. And this on some level is exactly what we've talked about before when we've talked about the alt-right conspiracy theorist QAnoners that flood to Plunket's content. Don't you have to say therefore? And I think, what have we said in the past? If we were making a podcast or something about how to repair a car, you're probably going to get lots of people coming along wanting to learn how to repair their cars. If you've got a whole bunch of people listening who are alt-right QAnon conspiracy theorists, what does that say about your content? And I guess in a much more professional and eloquent way, David Farrier is sort of echoing some of those same comments around things like homophobia and various questions. Anyway, that's kind of the summation of all the information, Chewy. Thoughts, sir?
Oh, well, we come back to this thing that we've spoken to about Plunket. Does he believe it, or is it just a bit?
Would you like the answer to that, or do you know the answer, or if you know the answer, should we offer the answer to the people?
I mean, both of them are contemptible, but for different reasons. Okay. Like, if he believes it, he's just a real, authentic piece of shit. If he doesn't, like, that's even more. Does it make it worse? I think it does.
So I was in Auckland.
It's that, and it lacks integrity as well.
I was in Auckland 10 days ago, 2 weeks ago, catching a cold, which was lovely. Thanks, Bob. Thanks, Auckland, by the way, you bastards. Bad too. Still kind of with me a little bit. And I had some meetings in the radio industry, and I've kind of said to you guys, "Oh, doing some work in the radio soon," but more about that later. But I spoke with some people who were very high management when Plunket was working for ZB and for Radio Live, because I had several meetings. And all of them, without question, when they talked about him, and it came up in a couple of meetings, were like, he doesn't believe anything he's saying because they know him personally. It's all horseshit. It's a grift. It's fake. It's all horseshit. Now, people who know him are saying it's horseshit. We're kind of asking the question, if it is horseshit, what? But when you get people like Billy Takaha, who is sort of the target a lot of his content, coming out saying, when will people realize that the platform and Plunket are a sham? It's like you go down to the bottom of the barrel and then you go under the barrel. And I guess it's a bit me saying this because he's fooling people. They're the people who are now being attracted to the platform. A couple of people, and obviously I'm not going to mention names or stations or anything, that I was talking to in Auckland have said very clearly, in their opinion, no one will ever advertise on the platform. They said when the rich listers' money runs out, they'll either have to get refunded by rich listers or they'll disappear. Because who wants to put their advert on the side of a dumpster fire? You know, what happens there is once the fire will engulf the advert. So it won't succeed. It's looking very successful at the moment, and it's in its way it looks, and that's because it's got $3 million behind it. If we had $3 million behind us as well, we would look fucking amazing. I mean, we look pretty good as it is, Chewy.
Well, yes.
Especially your background today, your pink and red background.
Well,
you should be doing this from your kitchen. If you were doing this from your kitchen, it would look amazing. Anyway, but it's not. Yeah, it's not going to work. It will hang around for a few years because that's what a bank balance of $3 million will do, enable you to hang around for a few years. But as we said 6 months ago, 5 months ago, his dilemma is going to be, does he move to, this is Plunket, does he move to where his authentic positions are, right, and lose who the audience he's already grifted? Or does he stay in the area where he doesn't believe the things he's saying to attract an audience to get money and then just, be Alex Jones in New Zealand? But in fact, I saw someone call him whale oil light the other day. I thought that was quite a good insult. But Cameron believes his stuff. So let's sort of demarcation there. But yeah, so that's the truth. He doesn't believe half the time. I heard something the other day, because he does pop up on my feed still, because I watch some of his things. He's now not buying into climate change. He's now actively climate change tonight. In fact, on his Twitter feed at the moment, it says this: remember, 97% of greenhouse gas emissions are not man-made. So he's actually going down the path of climate denial and stuff as well. Now, whether he believes that or not, I don't know. But the overarching theme is he's grifting. He doesn't believe it. It is my honest hell belief that he's grifting. But it's the worst of the worst.
Just as far as Billy Takaha and Sean Plunket, one thing sprung to mind: let them fight. I'm okay with it. When two of the worst people are having a go at each other, you just let them keep doing it.
People in the industry know you're full of shit, and the people you're trying to target know you're full of shit. Then the only people that are left over are, unfortunately, probably the most vulnerable and the ones who are most deluded. And I'm actually trying to be gentle saying that. I don't want to throw that out as a I'm not trying to weaponize that term, but I'm like people who are really, really down the path of being sucked in by some of this stuff. All right, team, thanks so much for joining us this evening. I know it's been a bit of a unique and different one. This has been a best of, in case you got confused halfway through. We appreciate you spending some time and being gracious with us on what we've been able to do over this funny period that we've been going through. As I said at the start of the show, if you caught it, not sure exactly when we'll be back to operating as per usual, would expect that to be in the first half of the third week of June, 19th, 20th, 21st, sometime in there, probably back to regular broadcasting. As of today and as of recording this, I can't give you that exact answer. Please follow me on Twitter, at Pat Brittenden, or Chewy is Chewy_NZ on Twitter. And that's the best place to find out what's happening on a day-to-day basis, to know if we're going to be live tomorrow night or not at all, or they're going to be best ofs or whatever it's going to be. So thanks for your time. And let me just put this up before we go. Huge thanks to our patrons. These are the patrons who are active as of the time of recording this. I'm sure some of them have dropped off since then, and maybe a heap more have signed on board. But when recording this on Tuesday, the 13th of June, these are the patrons that were active, and we thank you for supporting us in what we do. And I look forward to being back with you whenever we are. Follow me on Twitter to find out when those are going to be. And thank you for being a part of what we do. We look forward to continuing to get into this all the way up into the 2023 election and potentially beyond. Depends how we go. So thanks again, team. We'll catch you next time. Be safe, be well. And from Chewy, he's not here with us. And from me, hooroo.